I'm still not ready to be over Monster. Hey, it's Romania Black, and I don't think I'll ever be over Monster. I have. It's time. The last 74 weeks, I have read the manga and watched Monster with you week after week for 74 weeks, like a year and a half. Isn't that crazy? And I'm so thankful you all joined me on this journey, but as I was getting close to the end of this series, I was like, okay, I want to review the manga, I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about the series as a whole, but I'm still processing. From the end of Monster, I'm still processing, and I probably will be processing until summer. So this recap is going to talk about just some overall things with the manga, with the themes, with the episodes that were my favorite. We're going to do a character tier. It's not going to be like an Attack on Titan recap where it's like 6 hours worth. No, I don't know how long this will be, but it will not be that at all. But I wanted to just share my final thoughts on the series because after finishing episode 74, my mind was just kind of like, it felt so cathartic to be at the end that I was like, I need time to sit on it. And I still need time to sit on it, but I had this slotted in. I'm like, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to just rip the Band-Aid off. And then whatever I don't get to express or whatever you all express in the comments that I didn't get to talk about in here, I may bring them up in the live stream. So first and foremost, in the summer last year, I did some live streams and I really enjoyed doing that. So I will probably do more this coming summer, and I definitely want to have one specifically just for Monster. I think that probably when we get done after this series next week, we're going to be starting another Urasawa work, which is called Pluto, and I'm really excited about it. So I think that over the summer, I'll just do a live stream. We will talk about Pluto and Monster together, and that'll be a lot of fun. And of course, as I am sitting down talking with you, my dogs are like, play with me, so humor them. But yeah, that's my plan. We'll do a live stream about Monster. We'll do it about Pluto over the summer. It'll be a really good time. Probably as soon as we're done with Pluto, we'll do a live stream and talk about it. And my hope is by the time I get to that live stream, I will have read this book called Another Monster. Apparently there's a book that like has case files and information and like some extra information that it's not written by Urasawa. It's written by someone else, but Urasawa kind of did some editing and oversaw it. So it's considered canon. Kind of like with Death Note, there's a Death Note novel and it's not necessarily written by the author of Death Note, but it's considered canon. So they oversaw the instrumentation of it. So I found in the Internet Archives a translation of the book. I was going to read it and talk to you about it in this video, but it's 207 pages. And in 1 week with all the stuff going on in the channel and in real life, I just did not have time to sit down and read 207 pages. But that is my goal for the live stream, is to go through that Another Monster, take down notes, and bring them to you all in the live stream and talk about it there. That is my goal. So we'll be able to do that. So Yohei Okajima, they pointed out that book exists. So I am going to look at that for the live stream over the summer. So if you're wanting me to talk more about Monster, I will be looking at that when we get to the summer live stream. Before we dive into this manga overview that I've got the last volume here, volume 9. Before we dive into that, Warler had a comment in the Discord being like, why isn't this series more popular? Or why aren't more people looking at it? And I thought about that. We talked about, they said it kind of had a slow start. I will respectfully challenge that a little bit when we get to talking about the episodes. But I think that could be it. I think the fact that it does not have any supernatural elements in it makes it very different than any anime or manga that I've read or watched otherwise on the channel. Like this basically is like an animated live action. It really is. I think there are some artistic choices that make it anime, so it's not exactly like a Western animation or it's not like a live action. There are some artistic choices that are cinematic and very anime specific tropes, but I definitely think this could be adapted into a live action. We talked about this in the comments like several episodes back on YouTube, but I'm a little fearful for that because I feel like they'll try to like update it or something. And I'm like, no, it needs to be historically like it is. I think historically the time period that Monster sits in, it fits. So I don't know if they need to update it or anything like that. I think you can make it like a historical fiction movie and do fine with it. But But yeah, it could be that. I talked about how, now we view anime in terms of seasons. So I feel like if they split this series into multiple seasons that are more digestible for an audience that is like on the TikTok generation where we can't have big widespread things, we need things in little chunks, then maybe it'd be more popular. I don't know. They made the argument that people watch One Piece and there's thousands of episodes. My argument to that is those people are like me and have been watching this for 20 years and we are dedicated and we've spent and invested enough time in this series. We're not going to be done till it's over and we're going to follow Oda to his grave. So yeah. But yeah, I really wish more people would watch Monster. When it first was proposed, people said this was one of the classics. It was one of like, I wanted to watch a staple anime like Death Note, that was classic and everybody knows about it and that it's well known and worth the watch. And everybody was like, oh, you need to watch Monster. And so this is definitely, I feel like this is like mainstream anime 101. You want to sit down with somebody, you want to introduce them to anime and get them to open the door. This is the gateway drug. This is like, okay, sit down and watch Monster, and now you've watched an anime, and then see if you want to venture into something a little bit more. You want to get into some supernatural, then let's get Death Note. You want to get into like some fantasy creepiness, let's do Attack on Titan. Like, I feel like Monster is a great jumping point for anybody that is skeptical about anime and they're like, I don't know, anime sometimes is weird. Isn't it just magical girls and animals with horns and stuff and creepy like superhero people? No, it is. You could definitely introduce somebody with Monster and get them into it, especially if they like crime noir, they like thrillers. And then from there, be like, okay, if you liked Monster, now let's venture off into something else. I think you could definitely do that. I think that Urasawa's work is so good, it kind of just transcends the generic anime genre, and it's something very special. So let's talk about the manga. I am so happy that I have the manga. Urasawa, mwah, chef's kiss. The manga is so good. If you don't have the manga and you like Monster, I definitely recommend that you should get this because the artwork is incredible. There is like little extra things. It's not a lot, but it's extra. And just being able, I'm not a rewatcher. I'm just not. I have too much on my plate. There's too many anime to see. There's too many shows to watch, too much to see. But I do like in my spare time to go back and read. And I love manga because you can just sit down there with a volume, open it up, read a couple pages, and then put it away. It's always right there handy. You don't have to upload anything. You don't have to turn on a computer. You don't have to turn on TV. It's just right there. And if you've got it digital, get on your phone. But I do like the Monster, like this edition. It's very, very nice. I like it. The cover of this one. I'm glad I didn't look at the cover of this before getting to the end of the anime because the cover there's the picture of Johan with Tenma in the middle. And I think I've seen that graphic before, but then there's a picture of Grimmer in the corner. And I'm like, if I saw that picture of Grimmer in the corner and it spoiled that he was going to be in this final arc, I've been like, but I love it, right? Usually when I got them out of my, when I ordered them, I just take them out, put them on my shelf and not look at them. So I wouldn't have to worry about it, but I love it. And it's just such a perfect cover. So then they have on the inside, Tenma and Johan on there. I was surprised when I started getting into the final arc and I said I had one volume left. This volume is huge. It is massive. There is a lot in it. The chapters are long, but I thought there'd be a lot of extra material. There really is not, which I am impressed by. I was like, oh, this is the anime adaptation is pretty spot on. There are just a couple little extra things. So for example, when Lunge comes into the town and he first, you see him on the hill and he's going down to Ruinheim, there's this little tiny segment where he stops in at a bookstore. And this part's really interesting because he stops in the bookstore and sees that there are a lot of Czechoslovakian books that are on the shelves. And what I'm kind of glad about is that the anime doesn't include this because the moment he said there were Czechoslovakian books on the shelves, this is before Tenma figures out that Bonaparte is in Ruinheim. This is before all that. So knowing there's the Czechoslovakian books kind of would have been a hint that Bonaparte was there, which was interesting. Something that I do like, though, that Urasawa points out here is that he asks the man at the bookstore, he says, are there any picture books? And the man says no. Meaning that Bonaparte was not trying to carry his legacy with him and was not trying to carry on the experiments here in Ruinheim, that was never on the table. He didn't have the picture books in the library. He made sure they weren't even there or available. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, okay, that's a cool little tidbit that Bonaparte has not, transferred the experiment to Ruinheim. That part was really good. Another part that I really liked was, this part crushed my soul. So when Nina is in the hospital after she and Johann had the confrontation, and Tinma takes her to the hospital, we see Tinma leaving, and he's going to go off and find Johann. There is a scene where Dieter is with Reichwein. They come in to check Nina, and Dieter gets really sad, and he asks if Tinma has been there, and he thinks that he is, and he runs outside the hospital, and he's standing outside saying, I want to be with you. Let's be together, Tinma. And he's like, let's be together. And you just see Dieter crying there. You see Dieter crying there and then Tinma's up against the tree, but he knows that he can't see Dieter. He has to go do this thing in Ruinheim, and he just leaves. Oh, it's so sad. My heart having that little shot of Dieter, that was just soul crushing, right? So then we have Tinma showing up in Cologne, and he basically gets information. Like, he goes and visits this Association for Children's Literature, and then he finds out a little bit about Bonaparte and his alternate names and Klaus Poppy, and gets like all the different books and the illustrations, and that's where he finds out about Ruinheim, the book. So that part was really good. But yeah, us getting in here, if you get volume 9 for anything, get it for Grimmer. Get it for Grimmer. The chapter where he finds Wim and the gun, the manga, the way that Grimmer's expressions are drawn, my heart just broke into 1,000 pieces looking at this chapter. It's so well done. And then seeing Grimmer just getting mad at Bonaparte and saying, don't piss me off any more than I already am, to the old couple that gave out the guns. And he's like, you won't like me when I'm angry. Oh, Grimmer, this volume is a love letter to Grimmer for half of it, and I could not be happier. So you should definitely get it just for that reason alone. But another reason to get it is I love that when Lunge tells about, Johann being a fictional character and he's still after Tinma, and you see Bonaparte and Grimmer's expressions, they're like, really? Are you serious? There is a moment in here where Grimmer talks about, like, I'm a fictional character too. And he says that in the anime, but it really hits a little bit harder for me seeing Grimmer talk about being the fictional character. The foil to Johann is definitely Grimmer in this. And then, oh my God, as Tinma's coming into town, there's this scene where Lunge and Grimmer are talking about getting the beer, and Grimmer says, I'd like that. I bet it'll taste good. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's so interesting because Grimmer, for all his not having emotions, he shares so many emotions in the volume. He gets pissed, he gets sad, he longs to have a beer with Lunge, his grunge couple, and then he finally cries for his son. Like, it's just such a tour de force, right? But I love this page where we see Grimmer and Lunge together, and then Tinma shows up right there at the bottom. So good. Also, there's a couple extra scenes that are in this, like when Lunge is going through town with the guns, going towards Roberto in the hotel, he does stop and interact with some other people, I think more so than there were in the anime, which is interesting. But, oh my God. This scene, though, like, I don't know if y'all can see this, but Lunge with the gun, looking badass as hell. Oh my God. Like, just, Lunge has some great poses in Volume 9, too. He looks especially good in this. So basically the manga, Grimmer's Scream, The Magnificent Steiner, all that reads very true to the anime, which is really, really good. I appreciate that. I'm trying to get to the extra segment here. There is a shot, no pun intended, where when Johann confronts Tinma, and Tinma has the gun pointed at Johann, he said, you run through his head, he's like, ready, bang, bang, 2 shots. Whenever you shoot, you always fire twice. Do that and your chances of killing your target skyrocket. But he can't do it. And that's when Bonaparte hits him with the gun. So I wondered in that moment if he was thinking about killing Johann. He was. He was thinking about it. He was still hesitating, but Bonaparte, ironically enough, kept him from doing it. And then in that moment that Nina and Rudy show up, the expressions on Johan's face, when she says she forgives him, there is a moment where there's this light in his eyes. And he just kind of like, But being Johan, he's like, oh, it's too late. Oh. and then he gets shot. But I'm like, bitch, she forgave you. But he's so far gone at that point with his nihilism that what can we do? And then everything pretty much pans out exactly till the end. We do find out in this, it's made a little bit more clearer that Heckle was hired by Tenma to look up where Anna was, to look up where Nina and Johan's mom was. And he was hired to get information because he complains about it in the manga. He's like, well, I had to go get this stuff for Tenma and it was a lot of extra work and I had to break in and get police files and all this. He was doing it to find Anna's location. And then they do add one little thing at the end. We have the double spread of Johan seeing Tenma. That's really good. And the anime adapts it really well, the final confrontation. But what we get is that as Tenma leaves, I like this little extra part here where it shows him at the doorway looking back at Johan. And then you look down and there's 3 panels. There's one of Johan's arm. Then there's the wind fluttering the blinds. Then we see Tenma walking away to show a little passage of time. And then he wakes up. So again, did Johan snap awake and have that moment of talking to Tenma? Did he not? Was it all in Tenma's head? I don't know. I don't know. There's no way for us to know, is there? That's kind of the crazy thing. There's just no way of knowing. I love how ambiguous it is. So yeah, the manga, highly recommend. The manga is one of my favorite adaptations for an anime this series, Monster, is one of my favorite adaptations from manga that I've watched. It's so, so good. I feel like it's kind of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It really adapts the source material very well. And there are places where it elevates it. There are some little extras throughout the manga series that aren't adapted in the anime, but it never felt like stuff that was needed in the anime. It was always just like little extras that, for the sake of pacing, I'm sure they cut just to make sure the episodes were 22, 23 minutes. But I really encourage you to get the manga if you can find it. I was very fortunate. I scoured at the right times, apparently, and I was like, this is one of those series where it's only 9 volumes. I can save up and get like a volume a month and then have copies of it. So I highly encourage you, if you don't have the manga for Monster, to make sure to get it because it's really, really good. So talking about themes with this story, I didn't want to be repetitive in this video because I've talked for 74 weeks about this series, but I did have some comments from some people on Patreon that I did want to bring up because I think that they are worth noting. So over here, talking about our themes, getting all that on here, wanted to bring up the idea of Mushroom Citizen. I loved the way they phrased this, that to destroy a monster, you don't have to become one. You just have to recognize their humanity. God, I love that. So it's like because the whole entire premise for most of this series is about how do we kill a monster. Johan's a monster, how do we destroy him, right? You don't have to become one. Instead, you have to recognize their humanity. And that's kind of the insane thing, is that Grimmer points out in the series, Grimmer's like, I was never not human. My emotions didn't go away. They were buried in this unknown place, just bouncing around, but they were still inside of me. I was still human, even when I was the Magnificent Steiner. I was still human no matter what I did. I just had convinced myself, or my emotions had convinced me, that I wasn't. And I love that. And I love that because so often in shonen series that I've watched, everybody questions. They're like, well, how do you destroy a monster? You have to become a monster to fight a monster. And here, Urasawa says, no, you don't have to. If you want to destroy a monster, you don't have to become one. You just have to recognize they're human and that they're no different than you, and that takes away their power. And it's like, it's like when you become a monster, you make something more powerful than it actually is. Because that's kind of the crazy thing about this series, I was like, I thought Johann was going to be this like mastermind that was like had all these grand schemes, these major plans. It was all going to line up. No, he's just a traumatized kid that just happens to be a really good public speaker. He's just a human. And what gets me is when we find out about Bonaparte and how he really is, the connections and the parallels of Johann and Bonaparte are insane. But it's just like Bonaparte and Johann were built up by everyone around them to be these larger than life, like legendary figures that are untouchable. And then by the final episodes, it's like, no, they're touchable. They're tangible. They're right there. You can touch them. They're not infallible. They are human. And that brings them down to a point where they lose that power. It's like, now, of course, the question is, if Johann's escaped, what's going to happen? Are we going to go through this all over again? I think that it'll be, more advantageous to the ones against Johann now, and who knows? Maybe Johann will just disappear. I don't know. That is the one thing, is that Urasawa leaves that ending entirely up for interpretation to us to figure out what's happening. And who knows? I don't know. I'm curious to know what you all think would happen of him getting loose. I think he would try to go talk to Nina. Part of me does, but I think he knows she's going to, give him a talking to back. So I feel like he's just going to disappear and maybe become like Bonaparte and go find somewhere else to run away to. And maybe he'll do like Bonaparte and realize the errors of his ways and try to repent. I don't know. He seems a lot more nihilistic though than Bonaparte, so I'm not sure if that would be the case, but who knows? Also I want to talk about Christian, Kansas. I'm going to come back to Lyndon. And some of these are comments about characters. When we do the character tiers, we'll talk about them. But I want to come back to Christian, Kansas, who talks about Johann wanting to make Tenma a monster and pull him down. It reminded me a lot like Tenma being like Batman. If you've ever watched The Dark Knight, we talked about that in the comments, that Tenma was kind of like Bruce Wayne, where his one rule was he doesn't kill anybody. And throughout this, Tenma is tempted over and over again to kill people, and he still chooses not to. And Johann's kind of like, Johann and Heath Ledger's Joker are very similar characters in the fact that they just are kind of known by name. They don't really have a past that is known by many people, and they're kind of these larger than life figures that just try to bring others down to their level. And so I always think of, in The Dark Knight, Joker and Batman's conversation on the skyscraper about chaos and gravity and madness and bringing them down to the underworld and bringing them to their level. And that's very similar to Tenma and Johann. So I thought that was really, really cool. But I like the idea that Christian, Kansas pointed out that Tenma was so close to being what Johann wanted him to be. When Tenma thought he had killed Roberto, he was sinking into that hole and spiraling into that darkness and was starting to be the person that Johann wanted him to become. And of all people, it was Grimmer that pulled him out of it and somewhat convinced him to keep trying. And then once he found out he hadn't killed Roberto, it was like he was reinvigorated to go back to being the doctor that he was before. So I thought that was incredible. I was like, yes, please. I love that theme. I thought it was wonderful. And so H Banana 7, Alex Cornejo, they brought up these concepts as well. Alex Cornejo, my thing was, I kept thinking there would be this supernatural element, because it's one of those things like, well, how did Johann, like, how did he know exactly where to find these people? How did it all work out? Monster's not a perfect series. No series is perfect. And I do have some questions that we'll talk about with the character tiers, but I did wonder, like, some of the stuff that Johann knew, that he just happened to know. I'm like, how did he find that information out? Like the one killer where he got to the house and was able to talk to him. Like, how was he able to find these killers? Like, what was the network he was using? It's not like Yagami in Death Note where he has a data bank and access to it where he can find these things out. Like, how did Johann find some of this information? Unless he was psychic, there was like one of those situations. And some of that's kind of just brushed under the rug. Urasawa's like, that's not important. And I'm like, but it made me wonder, like, how did he gain access to that information? Like, how did he find that out? How did he know the killers and where to locate them at if they were serial killers? Because normally serial killers aren't just, you just don't know walking down the street, oh, that guy's killed 3 people so far. I'll go talk to him and convince him to kill more. How did Johann know all that? So That was one aspect that was like, kept me thinking that maybe there would be a supernatural element. And then Alex Cornejo pointed out that the very beginning of the whole series, there's these biblical, references to the Antichrist. And I was like, oh, well, usually when there's like a religious undertone, there's like supernatural stuff involved, like angels and demons. So I thought maybe we'd get into that. But no, he's just a kid. Just a kid that was a really good public speaker and was really persuasive. So, I do like, Alex Cornejo brought this up, the idea that Tenma, Lunge, and Eva were all thrown into a pit of darkness and tested, and they all came out fine. Like, Eva and Tenma more so tested than Lunge, but even Lunge was tested. And Grimmer even was tested and came out, but Grimmer died and the other three lived. But I thought that was really good to note that this series did try our main characters, and for the most part, they all made it out alive. H Banana 7 poses the question that we all should probably answer, which is, who is the monster? The answer to this question, if you don't know, and what I think it is everyone. Everyone is the monster. Everyone is capable of becoming a monster. Because then, the question that Hannah Banana or H Banana pointed out was, is Bonaparte a monster because of his experiment? Yes. Is he also human? Yes. Is Anna a monster because she chose one child over the other and it traumatized the other child? Yes. Is she still a human with regrets? Mm-hmm. Is Johann a monster for traumatizing a bunch of children and murdering a bunch of people and causing a lot of mental distress to several others? Mm-hmm. Is he still also a human? Mm-hmm. Is Tenma a monster for wanting those doctors to die in that moment? Tenma is the most saintly out of all of our characters, but even he had moments of darkness. And he pulled the trigger and did shoot Roberto. So Roberto lived. But, even Tenma has temptations and darkness within his heart, right? But he's still human. Every character in this series has moments where the potential for them to be a monster happens. Even Dieter, even Wim have moments where they're tempted. And us, the audience, find out that they could all become monsters. It's the question of, do you accept your humanity and fight for your humanity, or do you accept the monster and become the monster? And Johann accepted the monster, and Nina accepted her humanity. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that with those characters, right? But I thought that was really, really interesting, and I love the themes. The themes also of names. This series made me look at names in a way that I never looked at before, and labels and titles, and realizing just how much influence a name has for someone, how much influence a title has, and how much power, whether you have a name or don't have a name, connects to your identity and your agency. And Urasawa is just insane. Urasawa is insanely talented for creating a series that makes you question these things, and just making it each week you think about these characters and what they're doing and how that impacts you as well. So it's amazing, right? So before we go into character tiers and talking about it, I do want to talk about the episodes. I tried to pick out my favorite episodes, but there's 74 episodes and it's really hard. So instead, what I wanted to do is talk about the episode arcs. There are arcs, and they vary in episode length. How many episodes per arc there are. There's a lot of arcs, but I want to kind of put in the category of amazing, like which episodes were amazing, episodes that were great, episodes that were okay, and then if there was any that was like, oof. And the oof category comes down here. For the most part, that they're all mostly up here. I was talking to the moderators and Be Happy and saying that, like series, for me, like Attack on Titan, for example, I don't think there's a bad episode in that whole series. I think every episode, there are episodes that are better than others, and there are episodes that are more important than others. But I think that just like Attack on Titan, this series has just good episodes all the way through. There was never an episode I watched that I was like, oh, that was a waste of time. No, they were all very important to the story. And it's one of those episodes like you need to watch everything to get it. And I love that about the series. So the first arc is episodes 1 through 4, and that is Tenma setting up Tenma's character, the doctor, setting up Junker's death, Johan, the 9 years of setup in this one set of episodes 1 through 4, basically the foundation of our series. And I would say that it's great. I would say episodes 1 through 4, they're not my favorites, but in terms of setting up a series where I was invested, those episodes were amazing. Then we had episodes 5 through 8, which were Nina's introduction, the death of the Fortners, Lunge arriving. Those were amazing. I was like, yes, those were really, really good. I thought that was just getting like the one death of Moore where Tenma grieves. They weren't the most amazing episodes, but they were definitely right up there. So episodes 5 through 8 were good too. Then we had episode 9 through 12, which was Tenma being on the run, Heckle, Kinderheim, and Dieter. Those were all good episodes. I was like, oh, awesome. People were talking about the series starting slow. I didn't think it started slow. I thought there are definitely dips where it's like, oh, it's fine. But I thought it was really great. I really liked the episode. So I thought Tenma being on the run, getting introduced to Heckle, the whole thing with Kinderheim and Dieter, I thought that those were good as well. So episodes 9 through 12. So far, we're in pretty good territory. Then we have episodes 13 and 14 are when Tenma goes and does like the underground doctor work. And then Eva goes off the rails and like burns down a garden. I would put those under okay. They're fine. I feel like there's a couple moments in this series where they're like little checkpoints and breather spaces where the episodes, they do like an episode or two where you just need to breathe. And they're just like, hey, I know some crazy stuff. It was just happened. Like we just got off of like Dieter and Kinderheim. So let's take a break an episode or two. And they were still good. But they weren't like really great, amazing, important episodes. I'm sure that people will argue that there are plot points in these episodes that are in this category that are relevant. And I'm like, yes, I'm not arguing with you on that. I probably wouldn't rewatch episodes 13 or 14. They're fine. Episodes 15 through 17 though, meeting Baby and Wolf and the burning of the Turkish district, those are really good. I liked 15 through 17 a lot. Be My Baby, that episode, I'll never forget Baby's introduction with the vinyl and the music record, and then Nina having to break out of the mansion, and then her and Tenma and everybody on the dock, and then the first water tower with the message on it. That is one thing. The messages that were being used by Johan talking about the monster inside of me, that is a narrative element that was kind of dropped after a while. It was like we had those letters at the beginning, and then Johan just kind of stopped using them. He just got bored with that gimmick and was like, I'm not going to use hostage-like letters anymore. I'm just going to move on to something else. But it was like a gimmick that he used for like 17 episodes of the series, and he's like, I don't feel like it anymore. I was like, it would have been cool to see one more letter, one final letter. And plus, if you think about it, it connects Johan's character to Bonaparte, the idea of using letters and using that as communication to get people to go where you want them to go. It's a very Bonaparte thing to do, right? So episodes 18 through 22 are Lunge's pursuit, Nina learning about different events, and Tenma and Dieter traveling. Lunge's pursuit, you know what? Episode 18, I'm going to put it up here. The one where Lunge goes after Tenma and like has the zombified stuff on the door. There went my cap. I'll get it. But that episode's amazing. I love that episode where he chased after Tenma. It's one of my favorites in the first arc. And then I would say episodes 19 through 22. They're good. They just show like Tenma and Dieter traveling on the road. They meet that one couple. Nina's learning about everything going on. I actually put that under the okay. Other than Lunge's episode's really good. But then I'd put episode 19 through 22 on there. Same with episodes 23 and 24. Eva getting caught up in the game where she starts to get hooked up with Roberto and everything. Those episodes are good. They're fine. But I would honestly say that my least favorite part of the series, and I hate saying least favorite part because they're all still really good, and I would probably rewatch them, but I would say that there is a little bit of a lull. Between episodes 19 and 24, there's a slight little lull. it's the last time there's a lull. And then it goes, oh my God. And then everything goes off the rails. But literally, but I would say episodes 19 through 24 are like, everything's fine. You're just like, okay, we're setting this up. Is this going somewhere? And then we have episodes 25 through 29, which is the setup of Carl, of Schubert, the man who was Thursday, the Rated Thursday reader. Richard's whole plot, Richard's arc is episodes 25 through 29. Amazing. Like that whole thing. And then of Richard dying, like leading up to his death. Episodes 25 to 29 are really, really good. That was when I was like, oh, this show is getting amazing. And honestly, that would have been around the time, you know, you set up season 2. If this was like a 24 episode season, you would do it then. So that part was amazing. I love those episodes so much. And then I would say episodes 30 through 32. I'm going to put, it's kind of a toss up whether they're great or okay. 30 through 32 is right. I'm putting it in the great category because Reichwein is introduced. And I love Reichwein's introduction episode. But those episodes are Reichwein catching up with Tenma, of them going to the forest, and of Tenma being very close to killing Johann, but not quite there. And then the birds flying off of him in a very Toriyama-like gesture. Those episodes, there's not a whole lot that happen within them, but there's a lot of internal dialogue and internal themes going on that I think elevate them from just being, you know, plot driven to being something a little bit greater than that. Then we get the halfway point, where it's episodes 33. This is a big arc. Episodes 33 through 39 were the library setup. Like the library with Schubert, of Tenma and them tracking down, figuring out what to do with Johann, of Nina catching up, of the library burning, of Johann's confrontation with Tenma, of Roberto getting shot. All of that was in that arc, and it's so good. And honestly, at the halfway point, when we reached this, I was like, I don't know what they're going to do in the second half, because it felt like a finale. It felt like a series finale. We're like, oh, what do we do now? How can we elevate the plot any further, or elevate these characters at this midway point when it was so tense and so amped up? What could we do? And then I'm gonna elevate it to the top. One of my favorite things, episode 40 through 42 is Grimmer. Just when you think that you're like, I don't know how this series could get any better, then we introduce Grimmer, and it's like, oh my God. It's just like, it was like a reinvigoration. It was like Urasawa had saved this character for when you thought that there just couldn't be anything fresh about the series, and then boom, there's Grimmer. There's our foil to Johann. There he be, and it's just like the best thing ever. I love it. So we have those episodes. Episodes 43 through 46 are Sook's introductions. Again, getting more handsome blondes being introduced. Getting Sook's introduction of Sook and Johann in Prague, the double black chapter where it was Johann and drag. We got all of that in those episodes. Crazy times. Really loved that. I would say that the Johann, episode 46, the double black episode, is probably, I don't know if it's 45 or 46. That one's up there as an amazing episode. I think that one of the biggest reveals was Johann impersonating Nina the entire time. And going alongside with that, with the themes, Johann impersonating Nina in there was exactly like what he did during their childhood. And one of my big questions was, you know, why? Why did Anna have them both dressed as the daughter? I'm hoping when I read Another Monster, it gives me some insight into that. That was one of my major questions, was why did the mom dress them up both as girls? What was the point of that? Why didn't she dress them both up as boys? Why didn't she cut Nina's hair? We don't ever get an answer to that question. So when I read Another Monster, that's going to be one of my ones going in there as to why. But Johann, like, reliving his identity crisis through dressing up as Anna in Prague was such a wild moment. Definitely one of the best anime twists that I've watched in a while. So that one's gonna stick with me. Him looking in the mirror after taking the wig off, that's gonna stick with me for a long time. So then we have Nina arriving in Prague and getting her memories. I'd put this down as okay. I think episodes 47 and 48 are fine. They're just setting up Nina to be there and her getting her memories back. It's great. Then my oof episode is episode 49, which I wrote in my notes as the cruelest thing, or Johan tries to traumatically scar a child. At that point in the story, because a lot of people have talked about in the comments the justification of why Johan did the things that he did. And we'll talk about that with his character when we get to it. But every time they try to tell me about it, I'm like, yeah, but... But remember when he made those children jump off of roofs? Remember when he sat there watching a child tell him that they were having his friends jump off roofs, and Johan's like, yeah, that's something, huh? And didn't try to talk them down from it? Remember that? Remember when he tried to emotionally scar a kid, Milosh, to the point where he was going to commit suicide just because he had insecurities? He was trying to push it off on this other kid that he was jealous of. Remember those days? I do. That episode will always stick with me as being like, nope, here's my evidence. Because literally, Grimmer is the foil for Johan. Grimmer has suffered through the same environment, arguably that Johan has, and Grimmer ends up saving Milosh. So, what can we do? Then we had the Red Rose Mansion and the Monster's Love Letter. I liked both of those episodes. They were fine, but I think coming off of something that's batshit crazy, like episode 49, they do kind of like, they're just there to get the plot going. I do like, the ones that are great there, I think that episodes 52 through 55 were all about Vertiman and Tenma escaping from prison. I thought those episodes were neat. It was different. I was like, oh no, Tenma's going to jail. We still have 20 episodes left. And then Vertiman shows up, and then we see how Tenma escapes, and I thought that was interesting too. I also really like Lipsky and his introduction. I like the episodes with Lipsky and Nina. I could see some people saying they were just okay, but I liked Lipsky's reveal that he was Bonaparte's son, and the creepiness that kind of follows his character in the anime and in the manga kind of elevates that for me. Like I never felt like Lipsky would try to do anything with Nina, but it's just kind of creepy a little bit. But then there are 3 arcs that are my ultimate favorites in this series. One is the introduction of Grimmer. One, we'll talk about it in a little bit. The other is Martin. Yeah. Martin, episode 58 through 60. Shut up. Shut up. Martin is such an amazing character, and his arc with Eva is one of my favorites. We had him for 3 episodes. 3! And he's one of the most memorable characters in the whole damn show. I freaking love Martin. I love him so much. This himbo with a heart of gold. I wish he hadn't died, but this show does not give us nice things. And I was like, son of a bitch. So yeah, Martin's arc with Eva is one of my favorites. I love those 3 episodes. You could watch those 3 episodes just by themselves. You wouldn't even have to know anything else about the show. You wouldn't have to know about Eve, the rest of Eva. You wouldn't have to know about anything about Johan. You could watch those 3 episodes as like an OVA, and they would stand on their own. I'm fully convinced of it. Then we have episode 61, 62, which was the door to memories, and the pleasant dinner table. Those are the ones where we have Rosso, the man that tried to kill Peter, and we had Nina starting to remember things. They're fine, but again, just like 50 and 51 come off of 49, you have 61 and 62 coming off of Martin's arc, and I was just like, I was still devastated from Martin dying, and I was like, Then we have another episode that I'm going to put under here as the oof category is that I just don't know what to do with these episodes. And that's episode 63, which is, again, another very interesting transition episode. It's the episode Unrelated Murders, where we show the influence of Johan. I would say episode 63 is, like, it's one of the weirdest episodes of the whole series because it doesn't feel like an episode. It just feels like a little segue. But it's setting up the final arc of the season, so it's important that we get to that episode. But it also shows the influence of Johan on all these murders and connecting everything together. So it's important. It's just kind of a weird episode. Then we have episodes 64 through 67, which are the death of Baby and Peter and the reunion of Johan and Nina, which I really love those episodes. Episodes 64 through 67 are really just action packed. They're intense. They're thematically symbolic and just very stirring to watch, right? So I really like those episodes a lot. I thought those were really, really good. And then 68 through 74, that's my other one. 68 through 74 is the whole Ruinheim arc. That's my favorite part. The ending is my favorite part of the whole series. The setup in the town, the tension, the reveals of Bonaparte, the reveals of the couple with the wheelchair that were handing out the guns, the reveal of Wim, of the people shooting, Grimmer's death, Lunge versus Roberto, the final confrontation, him saving Johann. Urasawa ends this series on such a high note. And when I started out this series, I had no clue how it was going to end, but I thought it was going to end with like Tenma going to jail and then Johann getting caught through. I just didn't know how Urasawa was going to do it. And we've talked about this in the comments before, but Urasawa has this ability to write in a way that you watch and go, oh, of course. Of course that's the solution. Why didn't I think of that? And it feels simple, but it also feels complicated at the same time. Like how did we get here? And I love the thought process of when you break it down and see how Urasawa laid everything out to get to this final point. Like it's so well done. Like plot and character are by far like the best elements of the story, I feel like. I feel like we have 7 elements of fiction. You have setting, which I feel like setting is well done. I thought setting, check mark. You got going back historically. I learned stuff about Europe that I didn't know before. It was historical. It was very intriguing. The characters and the plot were tied to the setting, so the setting was relevant. It takes place during the 90s, so I get some 90s nostalgia. Setting was great. Point of view, getting it from Tenma's perspective as well as Johann and Nina's and Grimmer's. I liked point of view. It kind of felt at times like Game of Thrones a little bit, where if you've ever read Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin writes from different characters' perspectives. Like one chapter is from this character's point of view, another chapter is from this character's point of view. And I like that. I think it can work if it's done effectively. And Urasawa makes it effective here. You have Tenma as your thread, but then you have these other characters that can kind of take the reins and be main characters if they need to be, right? So I thought that was good. So if I was getting setting, would get a star, like 2 stars. I'd give plot 3 stars. Characters 5 stars, man. This series is character driven. If you want a show that is talking about characters, this is your bag. This is Urasawa having the ability to take a character and in 3 episodes make them someone you want to watch an entire series for. And they feel fleshed out. They feel lived in. Amazing. We'll talk about the characters in the character tier, but they're just awesome. Awesome characters. Then obviously the plot. There are parts about the plot. I would say I'd put plot under characters. There are parts about the plot I still have questions about and would like to have known more. And there's parts of the plots that I wish were expanded in different ways. But overall, I don't have a lot of complaints about how the plot is handled. I think it's done well. Then we have obviously theme. I mean, the theme is amazing. The theme about monsters, about names, about relationships, about communication, about forgiveness and mercy. It's all great, right? About change. And then style. I would say that the style is probably one of the lesser elements because it's realistic and it doesn't it's not visually and aesthetically. They do a great job animating it. And some of the techniques with the cinematography are well done, like the way they rotate around shots, so they do fast or slow-paced framing. But it's nothing like, it's not like Kiwani or like a visual feast. Monster's not a feast. You're not just watching Monster for the animation, right? You're watching it for the characters and the story, right? And then finally, the last one would be tone. And I feel like tone is just like, it's fine. You have setting, point of view, character, plot, theme, style, and the tone. Yeah. And it's fine. It's all good. Or symbolism, not tone, symbolism. Symbolism I would put up there with theme as it's just really, really well done. What I liked about the symbolism and tone in Monster is the idea that it's not forced. There's like little nuggets and little tiny pieces where you could sit and pick apart an episode, but it's never obvious, right? I never felt like the show was like, did you get that symbol? Did you make sure and understand this one part? It didn't feel like the show had to force you to understand the symbolism. It just put it out there. You either got it or you didn't, but it did not affect the overall quality of the story. There are some shows that the symbolism is heavily tied to the appreciation and understanding of the show, but Monster's not one of them. I feel like characters and plot and theme are like the main three elements, and then they're complemented by the setting, they're complemented by the symbolism, and then style and point of view are kind of just, they're there, but they're not like overall highlighted. So I really liked that. I thought that was really, really well done. So let's bring up character tiers. Let's bring up characters. I'm going to make a note of who I have still have comments to tie into. But I want to bring up the character tier. I found one online that we could do. I'm going to feel bad because some of these characters I'm not going to remember their names. There's a lot of blondes, a lot of Germans, a lot of blondes. I'm like, oh God. But we're going to look here at this character tier in 3, 2, 1. So this character tier ranks its characters based on amazing, great, good, meh, bad, and garbage. And my basis is, I feel like meh is like, do I even remember them? Are they memorable in any way? I don't feel like we'll have a lot in that category. The bad and garbage characters, I feel, are not, that my dog's like snorting underneath my feet, are not that they're written poorly, but that they're just like, you love to loathe them characters, right? Right? Which I guess you could put Johan in garbage. Joking. Let's go ahead and maybe tie through some of the characters that are like, or that are okay. I feel like the garbage character, if we're going to get one woman in garbage, I feel like the woman that was imitating Margot Langer, she goes on there. Like the prostitute that was imitating her, like, what the fudge? How dare she? I guess I get why Roberto and Johan took her out, because she knew too much about Johan and his past, so she had to go. But she was just a garbage character. She was not helpful to anybody in the story. Actively, I'm sad the girl with balloons isn't in this character tier, or I would have put her up there. I also thought, as far as being a bad character, let me get back to there. The guy, oh my gosh, we're gonna put him under, should we put him under garbage? The guy that like set Grimmer up? Should we, or set Sook up? Yeah, I'm putting him under garbage. The guy that set Sook up, the detective that led Sook to the warehouse and like was trying to set him up. No, he's garbage character. Like Sook was a precious bean. How dare you, sir? No way. You know what? I'm gonna put Becker under good. Becker's a good character. I really wanted to see more of him at the end of the series. I'm sad that we don't get to see more of Becker's character, but he was fine. I liked him in the beginning. I liked him standing up for Timma, trying to get him to go on dates. I kind of wanted to see him, and the problem with having all these really good characters is that Urasawa writes them so well, you want them to be in the rest of the story, and you want to keep seeing them, and Urasawa's like, I don't have time. So I kept wanting to see Becker, like, at the end with Eva, and, like, seeing how much she'd grown and changed over time, but we just didn't have time to do that. I do appreciate Urasawa's restraint, that instead of giving us like Return of the King style where there's 10 like 5 chapter endings, he's just like, no, here's the epilogue, you fill in the blanks, everybody will be fine. It's like, okay. As far as bad characters, I'm gonna put the lottery couple there. Like, I know that by the end of the series, the lottery couple, they're like, oh, we found out the meaning of true love, and we don't need the lottery money and all this. And I'm like, you guys, oh my gosh. They gave me such, like, they almost gave me ulcers with how much I was worried they were going to kill somebody. I was so terrified they were going to be the cause of someone's death in that last arc. And then it turns out, no, they don't cause the deaths at all. They're like, they help Wim stay okay, and then they just find true love at the end and realize it's not about the lottery, it's about the people that died along the way that weren't us. So yeah, they're not badly written characters. They're fine. They're just like those hillbillies you know in every small town you've been to that I'm like, get out of here. Leave, you fools. I want to see, is Wim involved in this, or is it just Dieter? No, Wim's there too. Yeah, Wim and Dieter look similar, but they're different enough here. I can tell who is who. Oh my gosh. Let's get our boy, our sweet Rose. I'm realizing now Rosso was not the one that went after Peter. No, I'm thinking of someone else. I'm getting their names mixed up, but I'm going to put Rosso under a good character. I really liked Rosso's character of him telling Nina. I'm only going to put him under good because he was only in that one episode. But in that one episode, him leaving that impression with her about having the five teaspoons of sugar in your coffee and that you need the sugar to make life sweet. And his character was really good. And I think he made a lasting impression. He definitely thematically steered the story and how to not be a monster in such a good direction. So I thought that was really good. I loved it. As far as meh characters, as far as characters that are like meh, I would say, if I had to, that I would put down here the two killers, Mueller and the other one, the two killers there. I know the one guy ends up saving Nina, so good for him, but both of them, I was like, they help kill the Fortners, and the one guy overdoses and dies, the one that talks to Tenma, and the other guy ends up, we assume maybe he dies or maybe he lives, but he ends up getting in a world of trouble. Both of them cause a lot of trouble. They're both I don't like either of them, but I don't like them. I don't dislike them enough to put them in bad or garbage. They're just meh. But they did kill the Fortners, which is so sad. Sad days, right? Are the Fortners on here? I don't know if the Fortners are included in this character tier, which is super, super sad. I think that I would put under meh as well. I'm going to feel bad putting some of these characters under meh. You know what? I'll put Heckle under good. He's such a troll. He's so slimy, but he's a slimy character, but he is memorable. I would put him under, he's not a bad character, but he's just slimy enough that he reminds me of Tito from Oliver and Company, the little chihuahua. He reminds me of that, and maybe that's why I find him a little bit more endearing, but I do like that he does help Tenma. He heckles about it, of course, but he does help Tenma and Dieter, and he did have some involvement in the Turkish burning, so I'll put him under good. He's okay. Is Heckle one of my favorites? No, but he's fine. He's okay. I would put under meh the girl that Serena Sailor Moon, the girl that like hooks up with Roberto and then she dies in the streets. I was like, I was really hoping her character would have more to her or would do more, but it's fine. I mean, she serves a purpose, and that purpose is to die in the story to get Grimmer riled up, but it's okay. It's fine. Any other characters I want to put under meh? I don't know at the moment. I'm going to put Sook under great. I like my boy Sook. Yeah, Sook's under great. Sook was Sook, that little sweet golden retriever. I really liked his character, and I like that he had some involvement towards the end. I like that he got involved with Grimmer. I like that him and Vertiman like cleared his name. I like that Sook fought to the end. And Sook, honestly, I kept thinking he was going to be like used as a villain or used to like cause Tenma harm and everything. He really didn't have much to do with Tenma at all. Not really. He was more tied to Grimmer and more tied to Nina and everybody, if anything. And also I kind of wanted to ship Johan with him. So maybe part of the Johan escaping is he'll go back to Prague and maybe he'll get with Sook. And maybe Sook, as maybe he will cause Sook's gay awakening and be with Sook as Johan. I don't know. I can write fan fiction. I can read fan fiction now. That's a great thing. Now that the floodgates are open, I have, for 74 weeks, y'all, I have not looked at fan fiction. I haven't looked at fan art unless it was in the Discord. So I have been depriving myself and disciplining myself for a year and a half from monster fan art and fan fiction. And now I can do whatever I want. It's so glorious. I was like, yes, I'm so excited. The floodgates are open. Baby is a bad character. Yeah, we'll put Baby under bad. I don't put Baby under garbage because I think Urasawa does a really good job with Baby of giving Baby this kind of like pitiful angle where it's pathetic. It's not sympathetic. It's not empathetic, but you just kind of feel like he's pathetic. And it kind of takes somebody that was this monstrous character back in the Turkish burning and just proves he's just like a sad little man. You're like, But he does get, murdered in his bathtub. So I guess that's comeuppance, especially when they drowned the one girl in the mansion room. So, but I feel Baby is definitely a bad character. I mean, he will not be forgiven for beating up Tenma, but I do feel like as a bad character, he's not quite garbage. He's not quite the guy going after Sook, but he's still bad, right? I would also say, who else can we put under here for there? I would put the guy that kept escaping under meh. The guy that kept escaping, I liked his character enough. He was like a source of levity when Tenma was going through his angsty, depressed phase. And so that was kind of cool, but he doesn't really have any resonance beyond that to me. He was just there for those one episodes, so he's fine. Another great character, though, is Richard. Give me all the Richard. Richard was the first death that I was really torn up about. I was really torn up about Richard's death. Like when Moorer dies, it's sad, and I feel for Moorer, and I was like, man, that sucks. But I mean, Moorer dies, and you feel bad about it, and I'm looking to see if Moorer is even on. Yes, he is. Okay, good. He's on this character tier. Moorer's, like, his death sucks, and seeing Tenma be so sad about it is horrifying. But Richard's death was like the first time I was like, oh, that's what we can do with this series. That's the power Johan has. Okay. Because Junkers, you barely get to know Junkers. So Johan shoots him, but you don't really get to know his character that well. And you have this prejudice against Junkers at the beginning because he's a criminal. And you're like, oh, well, he's a criminal. He died. Oh, no. But Richard's the first character that you're like, he was a good guy and he was trying and he was dealing with his sins and trying to atone for them. And you killed him. And just like, it was the first character I like really cared about. And I was like, oh, damn, this sucks. Is this going to keep happening in this story? And then that was like episode 29. The answer was yes. But yeah, I loved Richard's character so much. I was rooting for him. I was waiting for him to see his daughter and to like be able to see her again. And nope. No such luck with Richard. So that's very sad. I would say I'm going to put Moorer under good. Moorer was a good character. Moorer was really instrumental because he was the first character we saw that kind of subverted my stereotypes going in, right? Because Moorer, I mean, look at him on the screen there. He doesn't have a very memorable look, and he just seemed like a side character. And when Moorer was introduced, I'm like, oh, he's the side character that's journalist that's helping Tim out. He'll be on screen for like 20 minutes and we'll move on. But he had a lasting impact. And that was the first time experiencing the series, I thought, oh, Urasawa is going to develop these side characters and make us care about them. They are not just flat characters in the background. They have a purpose. They have connection with our main characters. This is going to be important. And that was like, Moorer was the first like inkling of, oh, the character work in the series is going to be really awesome. And so, and plus we were talking about in the Discord, I forget who brought it up, but Tenma, like when you compare his reaction to Moorer dying and him crying and just being so emotionally invested, and then when Grimmer dies and he's just like, yep, that's the journey Tenma goes on. And it's so horrible. Like it's awful to see him desensitized like that. I wasn't desensitized. I suffered a lot for Grimmer's character, but what can we do? So, but yeah, I liked Moorer's character a lot. And you know what? I liked Lipsky. I liked Lipsky's character. Did he creep me out a little bit in the manga? Yes. Did he creep me a little bit out in the anime? Yes. But I do like his character of him wanting to protect Nina and wanting her to have a happy ending. And in the manga, one thing that I will notice, and it didn't hit me until I was looking at the chapter when Nina talks about Lipsky being the child that wasn't wanted. There was a part of me that wondered, did he send Lipsky away from the readings because he truly was a failed child and wasn't special like the others? Or did he send Lipsky away because he was his son and he realized that he didn't want him part of the readings anymore? Because he sends Lipsky the postcard telling him where he's at. Like he wants him to come find him. But Lipsky doesn't do it. And Bonaparte just kind of accepts that. But I thought about that. I was like, I wonder if Lipsky was sent away from the reading group so that he wouldn't suffer the fate of the other kids, like those at Kinderheim had, and that those at the readings had. I don't know. That's a good question, but I liked Lipsky's character and the puppets. I thought that was really, really good. That was great. A meh character was the guy that trained Tenma with the guns very early on. Was his name like, wasn't Raul, but it was something. He and his daughter like were there and they trained Tenma on how to use a gun. That was a really good storyline. It was like episode 9, I think, but it was just a standalone episode. And again, kind of like Moorer, it was an example of a character that you met in one episode that had a really good impact. And I thought that was really cool. Bad characters, the guy that stabs himself in the ear with a pencil. That's how I remember him. Creepy as F. Like stabs himself in the head to kill himself rather than tell about Johann. That part had me convinced there was like a supernatural element. Because that whole storyline where his character, Johann, knew about his past. And granted, Johann did his research, but it's like Johann knew about his past, and it almost felt like, I mean, he had let Johann get into his brain. Kind of like Roberto. He'd become delusional, thinking that Johann was somehow going to, he had become delusional thinking that Johann was going to like give him certain things that weren't, I mean, he was telling Rudy that there were aliens involved at some point. Rudy's like, okay. But he was a very disturbing character, but the way he described Johann made me feel like there was like almost a psychic connection, which there wasn't that we know of, but that kind of lent to that whole supernatural element. So there we go. Speaking of which, great characters. Rudy, my dude, Rudy. I would almost put Rudy in amazing, but I'm saving my amazing for like my top 5. So if you're not my top 5, then you're going to go in amazing. So, but I would put Rudy up there. I would put Rudy honestly above Sook. Don't hate me. I love Sook, but I would put Rudy up there above Sook. I freaking love Rudy. Rudy would be me. If I was in the world of Monster, I would be Rudy. I would have my cassette player. I'd be walking around trying to talk Nina off a ledge all the time. I would be here for it. Rudy's character, I love that he starts out as such like a curmudgeon. Like you forget he's a curmudgeon-y character. And then by the end of it, he's just like doing his job, his civic duty, helping people get through their trauma. I loved that. And I guess we might as well put him up here as well. Where's Reichwein? Where is our sweet Reichwein? I want to find that jovial man. Put him up there. Sorry, Sook, but Reichwein's up there too. Reichwein is like the great uncle I wish I had. I love Reichwein. He goes from like, again, kind of like Moorer, being this character that you don't think is going to be much because he looks like an old man. And then like, he's like kicking people's asses. He's running marathons. He's like doing psychic evaluations. Like, I freaking love Reichwein. I'm so glad I thought he was going to die too. I thought Rudy and Reichwein were going to die. I'm so glad they lived, giving me peace. I'm all about it. All about it. I would put next, Vertiman. I would put Vertiman under good. Vertiman was a good character. I liked him in the series. He had that creepy vibe with the song at first. I liked him more after Tenma had the car conversation with him. When Tenma had the conversation in the car with Reichwein and they talked about the idea of his dad being a spy and he knew it and he still kept trying to move forward and progress past that, I thought that discussion was great. And I love how he helped Sook clear the name of Grimmer at the end. I thought that was amazing. So I liked Vertiman's character enough. He's not a great character, but I thought he was fine. I thought he was pretty good. I liked him a lot. So then, get on here. I would put Anna. Honestly, Anna is a character that I don't know what to do with. I'm like, do I put her as meh? Do I put her as good? Do I put her as bad? The questions of where to put Anna at. Oh, what do we do with a problem like Anna? Here's the thing. I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her because she was staged in a relationship to be like a breeding pair for a fascist group that she had no choice under. She's a freaking molecular geneticist student that's so intelligent, and instead she was just put up as a mom. Like, it's the ultimate like patriarchy against her. And then she has to do a Sophie's Choice, which she regrets later on because she was put on the spot in that moment. Someone in the comments suggested that she chose because that was the scientist in her. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I agree with that, because then you're like, well, but the mom in her would say don't choose. So I don't know. I feel like in the moment, it's hard for any of us, unless you have children, to really know what would have happened in that moment if you were in those shoes. And maybe she was thinking that if she didn't pick either of the kids, she would be killed, and then both of them would end up, traumatized even more. So I don't know. That is the one question of why she dressed them up as girls that I still want to know. I could see where Johan would think that she was denying him his identity and trying to like exclude him by not dressing them both up as boys, I guess. But I honestly took it as, and I talked about it in the episode, that she chose Nina because Johan fought to be saved. But we'll never know. I wish that Johan would meet Anna and get answers, but the show doesn't give us that. So that's another question. It's like, well, you'll have to figure out later. And it's like, So I don't know. I don't know whether to put Anna in a good character or a bad character, but I don't want to villainize her because she went through a lot of trauma. So I'm going to put her in a good. Or I'm going to put her in a meh. Meh. We're going to put her right in the middle. I can't choose between good and bad with her, so I'm going to just put her in meh. That's all I can do. That's all I can do with her right now. So that's, unless I change my mind later. I'll also put Junkers under meh. Because Junkers and Anna, they are both really important characters to the story, but there's just not a lot done with them. Like, once we find out we only find out Anna's backstory, and that's kind of all we get with her. She's used for a memory and for some backstory and context with Bonaparte, but we don't get a lot with her character. And Junkers, he sets up the entire conflict of the story, essentially, with Tinma and Johan, but we don't get a whole lot with him either. He's in like that one episode, and that's pretty much it. Meh. I would say also I'll put under, let's see here. Is this the old man? Oh, put him under garbage. The old man in the wheelchair. Yeah, that was giving out guns to kids. Put him in the garbage category. Absolutely. If his wife was there, she'd go there too. What a garbage pail kid. I'm glad that Grimmer got pissed at him. I'll put Margot Langer up here under good. I liked her character. I liked her. What's interesting is you have Anna, who Tinma feels completely neglected him and abandoned him despite all the trauma she went through. And then you have Anna's friend, Margot, who does send her son away, but does so with an act of love attached to it. And Carl turns out to be not a serial killer. So I liked Margot's character. I like what we got with her. I liked the involvement she had with the plot. That was really, really good. I like it. Also, honestly, Schubert ended up being a good character. I was for sure Schubert was going to be garbage when we first met him. I was really shocked at the transformation and roller coaster that Schubert's character goes on, like of him identifying as a monster and him like wanting to repent and coming to terms and then accepting his son. And Schubert went on a journey. And I thought he was going to die. I thought he was going to be used by Johann. I thought he was going to like try to kill somebody. I had all these expectations for Schubert, and Urasa was like, no, he's going to be all right. So I'm going to put him under good. I thought at the end, him and his conversation with Carl was really good. I really like Carl and Lottie. I'm going to put them both under good. I don't think they're great characters, but I'm going to put Schubert. I'm going to put the whole Margot gang together here. I think they're fine. I like Carl and Lottie a lot. Their story arc is one of the better ones in it. The episode 33 through 39, the library setup and all that. I thought they were good characters. Do I think they are as important and dynamic as Rudy, Reichwein, Sook, and Richard? No, but they were good characters. I think that their device being used alongside Nina and Johann was really good, so I thought that was fine. I liked that. Wolf's character is bad. Put them beside Baby. Wolf's character is bad, for Kinderheim and everything, but like Baby, I like that Urasawa gives us the opportunity to humanize Wolf and realize kind of what's going on behind the scenes with his character. I like that. I think his character is well written. There's not as much of his character as I thought there was going to be in the show. I'm not saying that there should have been more, but I was expecting more with this character, and then he just kind of dies. It's like, there was that creepy scene with the cassette player that was like, oh no, where Johan recorded over it. But I think overall, Baby and Wolf were two characters that I thought were going to be like the ultimate villains and villainized. And then it turns out that, nah, they're just people that are kind of pathetic. Like you do. Like you do. Speaking of bad as well, I would put Peter as well. We'll just finish out the trifecta. Peter, I almost would put Peter in garbage just because Peter, like, does not seem until the very end to reconcile anything. Like at the very end when he gets shot by his own bodyguards, when he gets shot by his own bodyguards, he talks about like his sister's memory, the memory that she's missing. Johan is a copy of it. Franz, what in God's name did we set out to create? And then he gets shot. So his character, like, he does some self-reflection, and he does like let Nina and Tenma go away and give them the information about Lipsky and all that, which is fine. But on the other hand, I'm like, his character was just a bad character. He's kind of like Baby and Wolf, right? There's humanized elements of him, but so much that they do, I'm like, oh my God, nope. We're getting down to the wire. Also, I don't know what to do with the girl that's the doctor. I'm going to put her under meh. The girl that was the doctor, I liked her character. She kind of falls in the same line as the guy that helps Tenma escape. I liked her character. She's running the hospital. It's fine. She's not as memorable. If I didn't see her face, I would almost forget about her. She does have the really important line about falling into the pit of darkness and getting out of it. And if you stay too long in the darkness, you can't escape it. There's that. That's good. But I feel like her character is just fine. She's meh. She's okay. She's okay. We're getting down to the wire. I would also say Petrov. I'm going to put Petrov under bad. I know Petrov. He ends up as a character reforging the orphanage to where the kids love and they're not going to turn evil, which is wonderful. I'm glad Milosh and the others had that, but I'm like, it's like that's his form of repenting from Kinderheim, and it's like, do you realize what you've done? Okay, you do. All right, cool. That keeps him from being garbage, but still a creepy bad character. But it gives us more Grimmer content, so I'll deal with it. I like putting these antagonistic characters attached to Johan down here for the most part. Oh my God, the Opie mofo, Kristoff. Can we put him in garbage? Can we do that with him? He was so smarmy. Oh my God, he was so smarmy. The smarmiest. And just like him, he was such an embodiment of being like, well, Johan said we were going to like rule the world and all this. And I'm like, did Johan say that? Or is that just you speaking on his behalf? And then Eva shooting him in the ear and him being like, how can I be a politician if my ear shot off? I was like, oh my God, what a garbage fire. Like even he made Baby look sympathetic in comparison. And I'm like, what? Yeah, no, Opie mofo, he's going to go down the garbage for sure. I think that's the last garbage character that I have, honestly. Because at this point, I think I would be judging the characters based on overall, like, how they are in the story. I would put the doctor that helps Tenma out as meh. I really liked his storyline with the little old lady that he saves, but it was just that one storyline. It's kind of like the guy that helps escape, the girl at the stand. He doesn't really have much to go with that storyline. And I would put the guy that tried to shoot Peter under meh. I would put him under good, but man, when Tenma tried to talk him down off that ledge and he was like, nope, I'm going to shoot him. I'm like, you're going to die. And then sure enough, there he goes. With Wim's dad, I don't know whether to put him under bad or meh. Because he does defend his son in the end, but he's also kind of like terrible. We're going to put him under bad. He's a bad person, but he also tries to save his son, which is a good thing. So it's like he's not garbage, but he's not good. He's just kind of, he's there. He's kind of like, he reminds me of Petrov. The dad and Petrov are very similar in that they've both done very bad things in the past, and they do actions before their deaths or before they're caught that are helpful to these good people, but it's like, is that enough to balance out and make up for what you've done? We're just gonna put you there. So now we're down to these 11 characters. I mean, we need to put Dieter up here as great. I freaking love Dieter. Dieter is a great character. I love him. He's wonderful. I did have some people comment that Dieter, the one thing about his character, and I do agree with this, it's very interesting that Urasawa has Wim and Dieter look very similar because they have very similar roles in this story. And the part that kind of sucks is that Dieter, after Nina, like around episode 50, Dieter has nothing else to do in the story. His storyline is finished. So he just gets relegated to either being babysat by Lottie and Carl, being babysat by Reichwein, or being babysat by Nina or by Eva. Like, Dieter just has nothing to do. So that's what keeps him from being amazing as a character. Like, I love Dieter's character, and I was constantly afraid he was going to die the entire series. And I'm glad he didn't, but I just wish we'd had more with Dieter. I wish the second half we could have, I almost wish that we didn't have Wim. And that's sad to say, but I wish that Wim and Dieter could have been the same character. I wish that Dieter could have followed Tenma and got to know Grimmer and whatnot. But the thing is, we have the alcoholic dad that's relevant to the whole plot. And I think it would have been a stretch to say that that was like Dieter's real dad or something. You needed to build up that connection between Wim and his father. So you can't really do that. And you need to build up Wim's connection with Bonaparte because that's essential to the whole damn plot. And so you can't really substitute Dieter for that. So I get why Urasawa created two characters. I'm going to put Wim up here right beside him so that you can see how similar their characters look. But I really liked Wim's character as well. I feel like I wanted more of Dieter in the first half, and I wanted more of Wim after the second half. So I ran into the same problem of wanting more with both characters. But they're both really good characters, and I like them a lot. So get there. We might as well talk about the first amazing character that's on here, and that's Martin. I mean, Martin's going to be probably down on the list there a little bit, but Martin's freaking amazing. I was like, all these damn blondes, all these beautiful blondes. And the thing about Martin's character that comes out of nowhere is that when you start out the episode he's in, and we're introduced to him as a hitman bodyguard, I just thought he was going to be a side character. I didn't think he was going to have this involvement with Eva. I didn't think he was going to have this involvement with Tenma like he did. I didn't think he was going to have this like heartfelt moment of falling in love with her. Like, I did not see Martin's arc coming at all because we had just had Grimmer. We just had Sook. We just established these characters. And then suddenly it was like, oh, and Martin? Like, just boom, 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 back to back. And I was like, I'm not ready. It was so good. And Martin's character, like, that's another death, like Richard's, that just guts you. You're like, no. And the what could have been, like, you kept, just like with Richard and me wanting to see Richard meet his daughter again, I wanted Martin to run off with Eva. And it just wasn't going to happen. Like, But I love Martin, his character. There's nothing I can say that's bad about his character except he's gone too soon. We only have him for 3 episodes, but he makes such a statement in those 3 episodes that he had to be there. I would say of the other characters that are in here, this is gonna be hard. I put Martin up in amazing, and now I'm like, wait, I only said top 5. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what? I'm gonna put Roberto under great. And you may be like, but Roberto is a garbage person. He is a garbage person, but he's damn good at being a garbage person. Whereas with Kristoff, whereas with the man in the wheelchair, whereas with the woman impersonating Margot Langer, whereas with the man that tried to get Sook killed, those 4 characters, we just get like a taste of their garbageness, and we just get like a layer. Roberto is a damn onion. Roberto just keeps peeling back layers over and over again. All the times he impersonated being a husband that you don't know if it's real. You don't know what's real about his backstory and what's made up. You don't know what's fabricated and what actually is reality. You don't know what his real name is until the very end. I kept getting confused the entire season, and you don't know if he's alive or dead. You don't know exactly the capacity to which him and Johan have a relationship. They know each other. they've met before, but you never know throughout the series until the very end to what extent him and Johan were working together. And you didn't know how much of it was him doing stuff on his own and how much of it was being dictated by Johan. And it's just crazy. And Roberto is one of those characters that gave me a sense of dread. Every time Roberto was on screen, I'm like, somebody could die. He doesn't care if he kills somebody. I'm terrified. And so every time he'd come up, it was just like a shudder would go through me. His character is so freaking good. But he's a garbage person. He's a garbage king, but he's a damn good garbage king, right? He's good at making you hate and fear his character. I was almost more afraid of Roberto than Johan. That's how we were in this series. I was like, really? Yeah. So get in this. Next, I would say we might as well talk about Lunge. Put Lunge up in there. Yeah. I freaking love Lunge. Oh my God. And I was talking with Maya in the Discord about this, because they were like, well, I've always liked Lunge. And I was like, yes. At the very beginning of the series, Lunge was frustrating to me because I was like, why aren't you getting this? Why aren't you doing this? What are you doing as a detective? Why are you targeting Timma? Get the full picture. But Urasawa is so smart with Lunge. His character goes on this little subtle roller coaster where you start out finding a lot about his character, a lot of baseline information, and then as you follow his character, you start to see like little things chip off one by one until Lunge literally gains his humanity. He's like Pinocchio. He starts out as this wooden detective that's so hell-bent on doing things by the book, this way, my way is the highway. And then by the end of it, he apologizes to Tenma. He accepts the idea of being a professor. He starts to like compromise. He's rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. His voice acting is amazing. I could listen to that deep baritone voice all day. And he's just such a character that you want to root for, but you're kind of like, how do you exist? He's just such a badass. I love Lunge so much. I freaking love him. He's great. I would put Eva under great as well. I'm going to put her above Roberto. Put her there. Eva is one of those characters. I'm going to talk about a few comments here. I Swallow Apple Seeds had pointed out with Roberto that Roberto was the only one who knew possibly Grimmer's actual name. And that's what's so frustrating about that scene where Roberto is there and Grimmer's already died. The moment we find out it's Roberto there and Grimmer's passed, I'm like, now we'll never know what his name was because those two can't meet. It's so frustrating. But Lyndon, I loved Lyndon pointing this out, that Eva went from being a gold digger at the beginning of the series. She was a gold digger going after men for their money. And then at the end of the series, she's an interior decorator, decorating kitchens and making her own money. That, our feminist icon. Like, I love that trajectory with Eva. And Eva was one of those characters when I started out. I thought her and Lunge were going to be working together till the end to like catch Tenma. I thought she was going to be evil. I thought she was going to inadvertently get Dieter or Tenma killed. I had all these theories about all this horrible stuff Eva could do. And then by the time we get to Martin's arc with her, she completely turns around. And he has such an impact on her that it changes her character completely. And it's like, and it feels so organic. It feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. Her character is probably the most changed in the series for me, like most improved. Her character undergoes the biggest transformation, I think, for me out of any character in the series. Her character makes the biggest transformation from start to finish, and it feels natural and organic, and I ended up liking Eva's character a lot. I liked her. So yeah, here's the thing. We now have got these other characters up here. I'm going to put Bonaparte as... do I put him under great or do I put him under good? I don't think Bonaparte is a bad character. I don't think he's garbage. Do I put him next to Anna? No, I don't want to do that to her. Oof. I'm going to put him... Do I put him under great, good? I don't know what to do with Bonaparte. I really don't. Do I put him in meh and have him in the middle? Do I put him in good? I don't. He's not just meh. He's not unforgettable. Put him under good. Yeah, because Carl's there. Yep. And Schubert's there. I'm going to put under good, and I'm going to put him, I don't want to separate Carl and him, but I would put him in the same category as good with Schubert and Carl. What I do love about Bonaparte is that this entire series had built him up to be this big bad character that I was like, oh, he's going to be somebody we really have to fear. He's going to be somebody that's like pulling the strings, that's orchestrating this whole thing. He's like a mob boss. He's going to do this. And then we get to Ruinheim, and no, he retired to this little community and started fresh, and now he's like, doing artwork and helping the kids and all this. And I'm like, it's so unexpected, but I loved it. It was a really good twist, and it really helps define that theme that everyone has the possibility of becoming a monster, but at the end of the day, we're all still humans. And the reason why I wouldn't elevate him to great is only because I felt like I wanted more with Johann and Bonaparte. I wanted more. I felt like the moment he got shot, I was like, oh, that's it? No. Like, I wanted him and Johann to have a conversation. I wanted Anna to be able to talk to him, or Nina to be able to talk to him. I wanted there to be some closure with his character and the others. And I mean, Anna's words came true. He died because of Johann coming there and Nina being there. He died at their hands inadvertently. But I wanted there to be more closure with his character, and there was not closure, which there's not closure with Johann either, but Johann's a lot more dynamic, and we follow Johann a lot more than Bonaparte. Bonaparte is like a whisper throughout most of the series, and then his character is almost frustrating because you think you have an idea of what he is, and then by the end you're like, no, that wasn't it at all, right? He was just this pathetic man who had a terrible idea, and people took up that idea and followed through with it, and then he came to regret it. And it's kind of like, I almost want to put him in bad next to Petrov, though, too, because I want to put him almost in bad next to Petrov because he kind of like did these horrible things and then realized the power of love and then dies. It's like, well, it's a little too late, but I honestly don't know what to do with Bonaparte. If you put him under bad next to Petrov or put Petrov in good next to him, I don't think I'd blame you, but I think the twist of Bonaparte actually turning out to be a human. And here's the thing about Bonaparte too that always I wanted closure with was that he told Nina in the end to run away and not become monsters. Like, he tried to keep them from being monsters. And she forgot about that. And she forgot about that and didn't tell Johann that. So I'm like, a large part of this might have been avoided if you'd remembered that. But, what can we do? So yeah, Bonaparte is going to go there right now. Here's our problem. I only got room for 3 more in Amazing if I'm doing my top 5. I kind of have an idea of my top 5, but we'll see. We're going to put, of course, Tenma has to be in the top 5. Of course. Honestly, though, I'm not going to put Tenma above Lunge. I like Lunge more than Tenma. I can't believe I'm saying that, but Tenma is an amazing character. But here's the insane thing. Tenma kind of has the very difficult task of being a main character that is saintly, and we follow Tenma. We feel bad for when he goes through his angst period. We feel bad for when he's like in his sad phase, but he has to be the one that is the moral high ground. And for a character like Tenma, being in the moral high ground often comes at the risk of we don't get as much layering with his character. Like, I wanted to know more about Tenma in Japan. Like, why doesn't he go home? I wanted to know more about his family. Oh, we know his friends meet up with Lunge at the very beginning of the series, but that's like all we get, and it's like half an episode. And we got the one scene of him as a kid getting bullied for wetting himself and for being a coward. I kept thinking we'd get more with Tenma's character at the end of the series, especially because he's the main character, but we don't. We arguably get more with Steiner. We arguably get more with Grimmer and Lunge than we do with Tenma, which is something. But Tenma is like one of the best characters in the show. I love him as a main character. I love his journey. I love what Tenma represents. I love that Tenma and Martin are both faced with the eye of evil, and they choose to be human. They choose the right thing. They choose to be the better person and to do what's right at the end instead of leaning into that darkness. And I kind of love that. I absolutely love that. Right? I think that's amazing. So that leaves my favorite character, of course, is Grimmer. I mean, I love Lunge and I love Tenma, but you cannot convince me. Grimmer is my favorite character. I freaking love him. He's so good. He's such a good character. And the thing is, he's such a foil to Johan. Where as Johan leans into the darkness and he's so nihilistic, Grimmer was raised in Kinderheim. He was raised to be a spy without a name, without anything. He was trained to be this emotionless monster. And then he marries a woman, has a child with her. The child dies and he has no reaction. The wife leaves him. He goes off and starts this freelance agency to try to reclaim his own identity. And then, for all beats and purposes, he has things worse, I think, in some regards, than Johan. I'm sorry, he does. I'm like, Johan doesn't have a kid that dies. Johan didn't have a wife that left him. Johan doesn't, have to deal with being used by an army. That doesn't happen. I'm like, Grimmer has all of these things, and at the end of the day, he tries to be human, and he seeks out light, and he seeks out helping Milosh and helping the others to be like kids that grow up in love. And then at the very end, he finds his voice and goes beyond the Magnificent Signer to save these people he comes to care about, and he gets to grieve his son's loss. And he's just a perfect character. Like, there's just nothing wrong with Grimmer's character. I love it so much. And he's only there for a short time, but the impact he has is insane. He pulls Tenma out of his funk. He befriends Lunge. He gets Lunge to buy him a beer. I don't know what else you want from Grimmer's character. He's so good. He's so perfect. I love him. So that leaves our twins. Leaves Nina and Johan. And I'm gonna make a bold move. And a lot of people are not gonna like this in my top 5, but hear me out. I'm putting Nina in my top 5. I'm gonna put Johan up here as a great character. Yeah. I said it. I did it. I made my controversial yet brave decision. Let me say something that's controversial yet brave. Nina is the one who goes through all this. Can we talk about this? Because I've read a lot of comments about Johan and about his trauma, right? And about, feeling unwanted. And I'm like, yes. So if we look at Johan on here, Johan, he felt unwanted. That sucks. That sucks that he was neglected. That sucks he was dressed up as a girl. That sucks. That sucks that he had to be a soundboard listening to his sister's trauma. That does suck for him. But he didn't experience that trauma. Nina experienced it. She was the one that was taken. She was the one that watched those people die. She was the one that was put in a dark room and fed 23 meals. She was the one that went through all this. She's the one that got the rose scratch, not him. No. He took on her memories because he felt bad for her and wanted to protect her, but it didn't happen to him. And then now the one thing that is different, and I will give Johan this, is that Johan did go to Kinderheim. He did go to Kinderheim. That's the big major factor. So that is the one thing that Johan was kind of messed up at Kinderheim and she went to the other orphanage. That is a messed up thing, right? But she's the one that went to the readings. She's the one that went to all the events, not Johan. And at the end of the day, she's not the one that murdered all these people. Like, Johan killed the couple that didn't do anything, that just saw them. He killed them in cold blood as a child. He killed multiple sets of foster parents that were just going house to house with them. He killed the Fortners. He hired their killers for the Fortners. So he had that orchestrated. He shot Junkers in the face. He actively had a bunch of children and was teaching them the same things that they had learned at Kinderheim. He was teaching these children, having them jump off of roofs because he thought that was better for them than living. Actively traumatically scarred a child, Milosh, to the point where he wanted to commit suicide. Stood in a park and waited for murderers to come to them and then gave them suggestive names to go kill. He didn't have to stand there and do that. And then actively was around people that were like, oh, should we kill people for you? And he's like, sure, I guess. And then he got bored and was like, well, I'm bored now, so I guess I'll go do this other stuff. Like, that was the one thing that surprised me about Johan's character. Johan is intimidating. Like, Johan is a very iconic antagonist in that you know his face. He's very iconic. He's easily recognizable. He's creepy as hell. He just has this voice and presence that feels like Lucifer, that feels like the devil. So, of course, it has that impact. But at the end of the day, he's just this sad, traumatized man that needs to go to therapy. And I'm like, Nina has been through a hell of a lot. And she don't bitch. So I'm like, Nina's gone through a hell of a lot of stuff. And she turned out okay. So it's like, and I'm like, the whole thing that frustrates me is that in the one scene where she talks to Timma and she's like, or she talks to Rudy. She's like, that night I shot him in the face. I didn't forgive him. And that caused all of this. I'm like, excuse me? I was like, maybe what caused all this was him shooting your foster parents. I'm like, and then he told her to shoot him. So that's been the one thing that a lot of justification is like that Johan loves his sister. But I'm like, yeah, he may love her, but he doesn't know what to do with that. And I understand why. And anytime a person comments and they're like, well, here's how he's emotionally distressed and he's mentally incapacitated and all this. And I'm like, yeah, right. But he's an adult and he's not dumb. He's not mentally challenged to where he doesn't understand things. He has a sound mind and knows what he's doing. He's just emotionally traumatized. But that doesn't make anything he does okay. And when he's like, oh, I love my sister, and she's like the last lifeline that I have towards my humanity, but he has a guy try to kill her when she goes to Heidelberg. A guy tries to kill her at the castle. Why? Why didn't he show up to get her? Why did he send a guy to try to kill her? That doesn't make any sense. And then on top of that, like, if Johan has all these connections and knows stuff's happening with her, why doesn't he get in contact with her? Why doesn't he save her? That whole argument is like, well, she doesn't love me anymore and she doesn't forgive me. I'm like, then you need to step up and try to communicate with her. I don't know why you're not doing this. And then on top of that, when they finally do have the reunion and they meet up and he tries to gaslight her and he's like, I'm the one that's been suffering. And she's like, wait a minute. No, you're not. I am. She's like, you're stealing my memories. And then my thing is, if he loved her, why did he leave and let her just sit there and toil and possibly kill herself? Like, what? But what? She was still with Peter and them. They could have killed her. Like, he didn't take care of any of them. He just ran off. The thing that strikes me is that he's like Bonaparte. And I wanted the story to go a little bit more into how similar to Bonaparte he is, because he really is. He's a guy that makes some bad decisions and others ride his coattails and make even worse decisions. And rather than take accountability and responsibility for it and reconcile it, he just runs away and retreats. Like, Johan's just like, I'll just let this happen, I guess. But then there's the fire in the library that he orchestrated. There's all of that. And the fact that he was like doing it just to make a statement to Schubert. And it's like, you knew Roberto was there to kill Tenma. And then his whole thing was like, well, I want Tenma to become a monster. And I'm like, well, Nina doesn't want anybody to become a monster. I don't know. I feel like Nina gets the short end of the stick in this story because she's the one that goes through a hell of a lot of trauma. But then because Johan imprinted on her memories, he's the one we should feel the sorriest for. And I'm like, I don't feel the sorriest for Johan. Nina's the one that actually went through it. Like, for the Kinderheim part, I do feel sorry for Johan. I do, where he met Kristoff and the whole thing. But then he had them all kill each other. So it's like, I don't... Johan is part of the 4 horsemen of the I did nothing wrong apocalypse. And if you know me, you know that those characters I don't feel sorry for. And I'm like, no, I feel more sorry for Nina, especially from all the memory stuff that she goes through and all the trauma she has to deal with. I feel like she doesn't get enough recognition for everything she has to put up with. And at the end of the day, she's living her best life. Like, she's going to be a lawyer. She gets good friendships. She embraces humanity. Like, Nina could have fell to the deepest pit of despair, but Tenma drug her out of it. Johan didn't drag her out of it. It was Tenma that drug her out of it. And I'm like, you're supposed to be the one that cares about your sister, but the guy that you're trying to actively drag into hell is the one that has to save her. I don't know. Johan is a character that I was like, you're fine. You're a great antagonist. He's creepy as hell. He has some iconic moments. I was terrified of him the entire time, but Nina gets my spot above him, even though a lot of people will complain that she's just kind of like Tenma and doesn't have as much to do. Girl, that is Urasawa's problem, not mine. But I think Nina deserves more credit than she gets due. So yeah, that's the character tier. There we go. I'm going to take a picture of it for posterity and so that people can get mad at me because I put Johan up in my top 5 characters. Suck it! It's my character tier. I can do whatever I want. We can talk about it in the live stream and y'all can chide me for it all you want. I'm fine with that. But yeah. So yeah. There we go. I'm really, really happy. I've talked for nearly 2 hours, dear God. But I was really excited about this series. I absolutely love it. It's wonderful. I hope you all enjoyed watching this series with me. It was a lot of fun. It was a long series. And so now that we've watched, 74 weeks of an Urasawa series, now we're going to watch 8 weeks of an Urasawa series. We're going to watch Pluto. I'm so excited for Pluto. It's going to be so much fun. But I can't wait for Pluto. I hope you all are excited as well. But yeah. We're gonna start that next week. Please no spoilers. I know I'm so terrified because there's only 8 episodes. So there's not a lot to watch, and I'm like, But I will have my moderators making sure that nobody gives me spoilers. My theory with spoilers is this: if the show is going to correct me or give me answers, let the show do that. You don't have to do that. Let the show give me the answers. Let the show correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to do that. We can talk about stuff, but that kind of thing, let me figure out as I watch, and we'll be good. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I look forward to the live stream, and I look forward to your comments down below as we temporarily, we're not saying goodbye just yet. I got another monster book to read. We'll get to it, and then this summer we'll have one more conversation, but we'll do that and finish up our talk with Monster. See you then.